Next big area is computation estimation. So this is like, so in 4th grade, they need to know fluency with multiplication facts through 12 by 12. That's 4.4. And then estimate sums, products, whole numbers, single step problems. So I just summed it up. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. So they're expected to know by the end of 4th grade 2 by 2 multiplication. So for example, 54 times 27. So if you're a student who hasn't even conceptualized multiplication yet, that's going to be very hard for you. So another example of them making things harder when students haven't even gotten the basics down yet. Like, it's in real life completely unnecessary for me to do 47 times 27. When will I ever have to do that in real life? I would just use a calculator, because why would I do that unless I can't even, like, I don't even do that in my head. I would have to write it down on paper. I mean, the goal now is for students to be able to do these complex multiplication problems in their head, but a lot of them still can't do basic 1 by 1, 4 times 8 in their head. Honestly, there's just too many standards. I think multiplication is an important one, because you do multiply things in real life. So we should be spending a lot more time on that, maybe like eliminate fractions. But here's another thing that's difficult, because they have to create and solve word problems, and a lot of students, word problems are very difficult for them. It takes a lot of reading comprehension for them to understand it, and a lot of students are of English as a second language.
So they'll understand the math, but they'll get the question wrong because they don't understand the problem.
Word problems, when are we going to see a word problem in real life? We'll see practical problems, but they're never written out in words. Word problems on SATs, but there's a viral tweet going on right here that said SAT is just a measure of wealth. So my revision would just be basic facts 12 by 12.
Or 2 by 1. Honestly, estimation is the most applicable and important skill in this standard. Continuing on with SOL 4.5a, determine common multiples and factors, including least common multiple and greatest common factor. This is another standard that is really hard because it really isn't applicable and practical to real life. Honestly, it's really just necessary to know when you're working with fractions, and you already know how I feel about fractions, because as you can see, B and C all deal with fractions, so A is really just a step necessary to work with fractions. But if students have a basic understanding of fractions and numbers, then they should be able to do B and C without knowing A. Least common multiple is easier because they know how to skip count, but GCF is really hard. And why do you need GCF? That's for factoring, simplifying fractions, which is basically finding fraction equivalent. So if you understand fractions well enough, like, you don't need to know GCF. Also, in order to understand 4.5, you need to know 4.4. So it's a lot. So I would just eliminate this whole thing and maybe add and subtract simple fractions, or even fractions with the same denominator. Like, why do you need to know addition and subtraction of unlike denominators in the freaking 4th grade? Also, like I said, I only add fractions in real life when I'm cooking. So once again, bring cooking into the equation. Next one, 4.6, the student will, so this was add and subtract decimals and solving addition subtraction problems with decimals, which I ain't too mad about. This is actually kind of easy and applicable in real life because you do need to add money, but except the thing with money is that it never goes into the thousands place value, so I don't know why students need to learn the thousands place value. And then this multi-step practical problems thing, that's another, once again, word problems, which are very difficult. Students actually need to know division as well, so I don't know why division is on here. Oh, here it is. Determine quotients of whole numbers. Once again, if they don't understand multiplication, they're not going to be able to understand division. Even some that do understand multiplication have a really hard time with division. They understand multiplication, but they have a hard time with division because they're not connecting the two. Oh man, division. What a time. What a time. When in real life will you ever need to divide a 3-digit number by a 2-digit number, or a 3-digit number by a 1-digit number? You could just use a calculator for that. Geometry here. I remember in the 10th grade, my geometry teacher tried to make geometry relevant by giving us a word problem about pool, and I've never used geometry in my life, and I suck at pool, even though I got an A in geometry. So, nice try, Miss Ortega. Actually, 4.7, permanent area I'm not too mad about, because that is kind of practical. You will kind of need to do that in real life. And it's not that hard, it's just adding and simple multiplying, so I'm not mad about 4.7. 4.82 is measurement, and I'm not too mad about that either, because that is practical. A is length, and this is like not an education system, but freaking US system. I meant problem in that they have to know US customary and metric units. Like, come on, US. Get with it and just do metric, please, because this is too much. And then weight and mass, they also have to know it in US customary and metric units. Identify equivalent measures of length, weight, mass. This is all a lot of practical stuff. But like the liquid volume stuff, oh my god, yes. Again with the US system. Food, okay, length is pretty standard. Weight, mass, and liquid volume, however, is not standard in that for food, sometimes you'll see things measured in grams, sometimes it's in pounds, grams, and then sometimes it's in volume. It's very confusing, and so a lot of stuff you learn in school when it comes to weight, mass, and liquid volume isn't even applicable to real life because everything's just measured weirdly here in this country. So, like, I never need to know really, like, gallons and quarts and pints. Like, I never really need to convert any of that in real life, so it's kind of annoying to have to teach and learn it. 4.9, actually, this one's not too bad either because it's just time. 4.10, here's where all that useless geometry comes in. Points, lines, line segments, arrays, and angles, including endpoints and vertices, and identify an intersecting parallel and perpendicular line. Obviously, if you're a student who wants to be an engineer or like who's interested in that, you should have the option to be able to learn this stuff. But if you are not interested in that, but you're forced to learn this, even though you don't ever think you will ever learn this, I don't think you should have an option to opt out of this if you're not interested, because this is useless information I've never used in my life. Here's 4.11. This is about shapes. That's kind of interesting because it's just shapes, but again, very irrelevant unless you're going into that particular field. These are more shapes, but also same thing. So these last three are about shapes and stuff. And actually, this is actually students who have a hard time working with numbers. This is easier for them because, not easier, but it's like different for them, so it might be easier, but it's definitely different. Next one, probably statistics. Actually, this one's actually a lot of fun and more applicable than the other ones. Likelihood of an outcome of a simple event. I'm not going to read everything. And 4.4 is graphs. Yeah, I guess probably statistics is the most useful of this whole SOL fourth grade SOL math standards. Definitely this graphs, very relevant to life, and honestly the funnest. Students do have a hard time reading the graphs, but that's just an age thing in my opinion. Lastly, patterns, functions, algebra. So this is supposed to prepare them for algebra in later life. The student will identify, describe, create, and extend patterns found in objects, pictures, numbers, and tables. That's, I think, not too bad. And then the student will recognize and demonstrate the meaning of equality in an equation. That's pretty simple in that we try to teach them that the equal sign does not mean like solve it. It just means equality. So the education system is one big scam and school isn't fun anymore. Goodbye.